I welcome you to today's inter-university debate. This is the third group and the fourth university in this third group. Previously, we had two other groups of universities that debated. In the first group, we had Makerere University, we had Kampala University, Kampala University, and Uganda University, where we saw Makerere University and Kampala University make it to the next round of the debate. In the second group, we had IUIU, Kyambogo University, Ndeje University, and Uganda Pentecostal University. And this is the fourth group. This is the fourth university in the third group. So in the previous weeks, we had other members of the third group debate. And today with us, we have the fourth member. Today we have Kampala International University. The previous weeks we had Mountains of the Moon University, Bishop Stewart University, and Makerere University Business School, which debated last week. I'm your moderator for today's debate. My name is Lake Gender Fancy. I'm an advocate, a lecturer, and a tax consultant. Our topic for today is the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. What is the state of Uganda's education? That is our topic for today that we are going to debate. Our debate runs from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance, and it is on Civic Space TV on YouTube. With me, I have a panel of 4 debaters from Kampala International University. I will mention your name and then kindly put your video on and your audio and reintroduce yourself. Our first panelist for today's debate is Muvara Judith. Judith, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Judith Muvara, like the moderator said. I'm a student and I'm glad to be part of the panelists. Thank you very much.
Okay. So our dear panelists, you'll introduce yourselves and tell us the course that you're doing. We'll first get back to Judith. Judith, which course are you doing?
It's doing the Bachelor's of Law at Kampala University.
Okay.
Am I audible?
I wasn't able.
Sorry? Hello?
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So our next panelist is Joanitah. Joanitah, you can put your on and your audio on, and then you introduce yourself and tell us the course you're doing.
Joanitah. I'm a KIU student. I'm doing Bachelor's of Law at KIU University. Yeah.
Thank you, Joanitah. Our third panelist is Mr. Ogutu Titus. Titus, you're welcome to this debate.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm clear enough. My name is Titus Ogutu, and I'm a student of law at Kampala International University.
Thank you, Titus. Welcome to this platform. Last but not least, we have Mr. Nareeba, Jonnathan, who is our fourth panelist, and he is going to join us in a bit. So, to introduce this topic, which is the foundation of every state, is the education of its youth. What is the state of Uganda's education? Now, an introduction topic is to the fact that Uganda's education system consists of pre-primary, primary, secondary, universities, and even stretches up to technical institutes. Now, there has been so many topics that have been associated with Uganda's education system, which our panelists today will help unpackage it for us. The first issue has been the youth unemployment. Is the problem the Uganda's education system? That is something that our panelists will talk about today. The second issue is on the closure of schools due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it the best choice Uganda had? That will also be discussed today. Then thirdly, there has been the introduction of online studies due to the COVID-19 pandemic that led to the closure of schools. Was it the best alternative? Our fourth issue is that some people have suggested that maybe Uganda should have more technical institutes created so that the citizens can become more job creators than job seekers. And this specifically was directed towards the youth. We will also get the take of our panelists on that today. And last but not least, there is the issue of the high school fees that is being charged by the schools. We'll also get the take of our panelists on that. So this is going to be the structure of our debate today. The first thing we are going to do is our panelists are going to give us their opening statements. So in the opening statement, our panelists will be answering a question. So I'll direct a question to each panelist to answer in their opening statement. After that, we are going to have our panelists answer one general question, which will be directed to all of them. They'll each answer that question in 5 minutes each. And after that, we shall have specific questions directed to specific panelists, depending on how they argue during the opening statement and when answering the general question. And lastly, we shall have closing remarks from our panelists. So to start with, straight away, our opening statement. And the first panelist to give us our opening statement is going to be Miss Judith. So Judith, you have the floor to give us your opening statement in 3 minutes. And the question to you is, what's on your mind when we talk about education? You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I want to confirm that I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. So what do I understand by education is your question, right?
Yes, Judith.
All right. So I think I will start with defining what education is according to the books. I think it was the book from Professor Sekamwa, who in his book of History and Development and Education in Uganda, he defined education as the process of facilitating learning or acquisition of knowledge and skills, values, morals, beliefs, and habits. And according to that, in my own take, any person that attains those beliefs, morals, knowledge, skills was defined as an educated person. Though I find it prudent to maybe take you back in the history of Uganda. Before the formal education came in, we had the African way, the informal education that was ongoing in the past years, where the indigenous education that included social behavior, beliefs, customs, the laws, they teach you about medicine, religion, agriculture, pastoralism. That informal education, they impacted skills and knowledge in the young people. I don't get feedback. I'm hearing some feedback. I want to think that I'm clear. So let me proceed.
I can hear you, Judith. Please proceed.
All right.
We can hear you.
So previously, the African way of teaching through parables, through folk songs, through storytelling, I want to think they had the practical way of involving young people in imparting them with knowledge and skills. So they had that informal kind of setting that these children were practically available For example, the boys used to be taught how to build houses, how to go pottery, or to do carpentry, or to use bow and spear to defend themselves, which is not in the recent education. And I think it was really necessary. It was actually very helping to the environment and society of the young kids. Right now, it is very difficult to teach a person to do pottery, to teach a kid to do pottery. They will not understand. And yet, these are the skills that will help them make a living in the near future. The survival skills of defending themselves. Right now, kids are just, they just come up with, they grow up watching TV and video games, and they don't know about defending themselves or even the society in case someone is attacked. How to know about your environment, how to know all those things in the informal education in the past years, African West, before they introduced the formal education. I think the formal education was introduced in the early 80s by these foreign people, the Muslims, I think, and the Christian, the missionaries. They're the ones who introduced the formal education. And to them, when they came to Uganda, they thought we have no education, because to them, education was teaching, reading and writing. And they thought if a person cannot read and write, then there's no education. And yet, our African ways had a way of teaching these people how to skills and knowledge, how to develop and be good citizens. So I think it was necessary to give a kind of a history about our informal education, because in my own view, I think it was really impactful and effective, because it taught people the knowledge and skills that were needed. If you're interested in carpentry, you were taught how to do carpentry, and right away you make chairs, you own your living and sell them. But right now, our education system is more of teaching us how to be job seekers and not job creators, and which is difficult, which is why we find a lot of unemployment around the youth. I think a good percentage of people are not employed because of that notion of job seeking. So I think it is necessary to go back to the African setting and learn those skills that might help you create a living. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Judith, for your opening statement. Later on, we shall bring you back into the discussion to tell us whether you suggest that we go back to the informal system of education. We shall have a discussion on that at a later time. Let me get to Titus. Let me bring Titus into the discussion. So Titus, please give us your opening statement, and the question to you is, as the topic states, that the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. So my question to you, is the foundation of Uganda the education of its youth?
Well, thank you so much for the question. And I really have to say that the word clearly says foundation, and that's an important statement that we shouldn't take for granted. Just like if someone is growing up, the foundation matters a lot. So for the case that we are handling today, it's clearly true that education is really, really something very, very fundamental for the youth of this country. You can clearly pick what my friend just mentioned, Judith, where she speaks about the old systems which were in place compared to what is happening today. Basically, we would clearly say that the modes clearly changed a bit, but also when we speak of education, we also need to go back to the roots of this of development as a human being or as an adult. As you know, children, we usually start from home, and we have so many steps down there. We have the preparatory stage, and then we head to primary level, then we come to the post-secondary levels at high school. Then now we come to university. So when we speak of foundation, it's really, really important for personal development, first of all, of a human being. And in terms of speaking of, in terms of acquiring knowledge, in terms of having skills, in terms of having morals, habits, beliefs, and maybe also to say that is what is very, very important are values. You realize many people are kept out of values or understanding the benefits of values to them. And that is why you clearly see that education is a process. So if we do not have the foundations being so strong and stable for the youth that actually carry a high percentage of the population that we live in today, then clearly there is a problem somewhere. With the kind of advancement that we have today, clearly a good foundation has to have a good education system. Later on, probably in our presentation, we shall look at the critiques of the education system of Uganda, because clearly there are loopholes that we clearly have to state without doubting or saying any other side. So clearly, to me, the foundations are very, very, very important. And if we even had a good foundation, then probably the effects of this COVID-19 probably would have been solved in one way or the other. So basically, as for me as a person and as a young man, I would clearly say that a foundation is very, very important in each and every state that has an education system or that even intends to have an education system. So clearly, when we go back to the 1960s and we look at how education was being carried on, yes, we would clearly say there were a few levels of development compared to what we have today, but that shouldn't be a reason for us to also lament a lot. As I said earlier, that we are living in a world that is developing on a high speed due to the effects of globalization and many others. So basically, the foundation gives us a surface to see the kind of people we will be in the future, because they usually say that a good foundation may have a good produce, or early preparation may have good produce or good fruit. So assume that the young people are the garden and the state is the one supposed to provide the suitable environment or the conducive environment for them to be productive or the future leaders, as it's said in the recent years. So basically, as I said earlier on, a good foundation makes a good product. So basically, a good foundation in the education system clearly leads to a better education in the future and even ahead, probably that would have been now, but I would say in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Titus, for that submission. And surely we are going to give you a chance to critique Uganda's education system at a later time. So, Joanitah, let's have Joanitah give us her opening statement. And my question to Joanitah is, so what is the current state of Uganda's education system?
Yes, current education system is too many things. I say it's a good one, it's a complicated one, it's a bad one at the same time. So if I'm to start with good, if we see the process that Uganda has gone through from back in the 1990s and up to where we are right now, we see a progress. We see that we've not only addressed our minds to the American way of doing things, the colonialist way of doing things, but we still, in the opening statement of Muvara, she said that everything about our tradition has been broken, but there are still things that we still we still appreciate with our traditions, and that education is still going on. However much it has reduced, and we've gone to the to this education of colonialists. So in a good way, education, though there are loopholes, obviously, and these are some of the things we'll have to look at. So I would say that in that manner, we see that the education system of Uganda has kind of improved. We see that we introduced some like the primary schools, the Bonaba Basome system that was introduced, where some of the people that could not afford to come to school had an opportunity to afford. We will see that something was at least done. We won't condemn the education system 100% because something good has been done. Then when we go to complication, it will also still come to the challenges that the education system of Uganda is facing. We see there is corruption, we see there is poor funding, we see there is poor government planning, we see the system itself, the curriculum, where someone has to go to school and spend 5 years is it even 5, 7 years in primary, but waiting for only one exam. That's the UNEB exam, which will look at things you would have studied even in just 4 or 3 years. So literally, the education system, like I said, I wouldn't judge it to be bad or good. Rather, we have many challenges, and we have some other things that we really have to appreciate as we go on with this debate. And some of these things are, as I've stated, those some of the problems are the poor government planning, and most of the things lie under the poor government planning. And these are some of the things we will have to look at as we continue with the debate, with our debate, I guess. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Joanitah, for that insight into the current status of Uganda's education system. So let us go to the general question that Titus has been waiting for. So we are going to start right from Judith, and you'll be given a chance to critique Uganda's education system. So my question to you people is that what are the gaps in Uganda's education system? Starting with Judith. Okay, since Titus has been warming up for that question, let's start with Titus then. So Titus, what are the gaps in Uganda's education system?
Well, first of all, I want to say that education is very, very important for each and everyone. And as I earlier on said, we live in a world that is developing. And as young people, we shouldn't give excuses that we do not know, okay? First of all, of course, we have to thank the government of Uganda for putting in place channels that actually students or young people or even adults can access an education. And that is very, very important. And when Joanitah was submitting, she mentioned things of Bonaba Gagawale initiatives. And even I think we have adult learning provided at different institutions. But when we look at the education system of Uganda, I would rather say that on paper, it kind of looks beautiful and nice or eye-catching for somebody. But I think it misses out the part on when it comes to coming to reality. First of all, we would criticize the education system of Uganda looking at the phases or the steps under which one has to go through for so many years. For instance, when you look at the 3 years a person has to spend in nursery, well, we would say that is good because you're nurturing the child to adapt to this kind of way of reading, learning, and also getting skills. However, let's look at the 7 years that are spent in primary. I mean, what is so much that is taught in those levels? Then we come also and look at from senior 1 to senior 4. Then the 2 years one spends in HSC, and again the person has to spend more years at university depending on the course he or she will take. Now, when we look at the structure with the education system, clearly there is a missing point which needs to be revised, because you cannot say that, as I was doing some research, they were telling me that children between the age of 1 to 14 are almost 49.1, okay? Then when you look at 15 to 24, they're approximately 21.2 going on upwards. But this does not match with those who are living in urban areas and rural areas. Because clearly in urban areas, we would say, yes, there is a standard, at least, yes, children are adapting to the education system of the country. But what is happening in the rural areas, where actually government has tried to put in place structures, unfortunately, they are also disappointing in the bit of the structure. Now, we have here a struggle. We have children that say, yes, I really like to know something. I don't want to be illiterate. But the structures that have been put in place by the government are clearly discouraging. But what is happening in the urban areas? In the urban areas, yes, we are seeing private institutions, we are seeing private schools that are have actually put up structures that are beating those of government. So you ask yourself one question: why can't government at least adopt from the private schools or institutions that are providing education in this country? However, one would say that government doesn't have money. Well, if government has money to buy tear gas to tear gas students, for example, we saw what happened in Chambogo and Makerere, for reasons which might be of value, why can't government also provide good structures and goods for teachers? For example, structures for teachers where they can have a rest, and probably also say a good pay for these teachers, because seriously, the allowances that are received in this country by teachers clearly are not appealing. And that is where you find a teacher is working in almost 5 schools, probably in 1 government school and maybe 4 private schools, just because he wants to earn more. Now, we are looking at the teacher, but what does he have to offer to the students? So if the teachers are not having a good pay from the state, then we do not expect the teacher to give his very best to the students or to the young people of this country. I would give you an example that if there is no good relation between teacher and student, then what is going to be impacted in the student should be of doubt. Or clearly we do not know what actually, or basically he will do it to basically please that actually he's in class, but he's actually not doing the right job that he's supposed to do. And of course, this takes me back to what Judith mentioned, the skills and the acquiring of knowledge that she spoke about. What is so different with the world that is changing? So I think there is a gap that the state is missing somewhere in terms of structures and also facilitation of these teachers. We shouldn't rely more on the salaries that are given them, but these teachers also need to be remunerated. They need to be encouraged so that they can actually transfer the kind of knowledge that is needed. Now, my second point, as I was making that submission, I was trying to make what happens in the rural areas and what is also the situation in the urban areas, because clearly when you look at the levels of performance, they clearly come from schools that are in urban areas. We would say that have developed, for instance, Wakiso, Mukono, but what is happening in deep down in Kabiramaido, one does not know. What is happening in Unyama, someone may not clearly know, okay? So when we look at terms of structures, for sure the education system is lacking, even if they would say that, yes, they have tried something. Probably I would appreciate for saying that at least the literacy levels have been worked on at one point. So going back to my first point I was speaking about was the school life expectancy, because you realize that a child is going to spend close to averagely 18 years or 19 years in school. That is just primary school, not even to become a profession, okay? Not to become a profession, because if the person wants to become a professional, then the person has to go to higher institutions of learning. Probably we would say institutions like Kampala International University to be a professional or a graduate even, to mention. So at that point, the years that a child spends, close to 19 years, what is this child learning? That is an important question that we need to ask ourselves when we are looking at the education system of this country. What is the child learning from the education system for the 19 years that is going to be in school? Okay, so when we look at the effects of COVID, what was the main point of having so high rates of young girls resorting to sexual immorality and having all these kinds of lineups in hospitals in the form of teenage pregnancy? Of course, well, we cannot blame them in one way or the other. They have their own reasons or the situations. We cannot guess the situations. But how many of them did these things willingly because they had given up, because they did not have hope, okay, in one way or the other? So clearly, when we look at the education system, it's not appealing. And when you look at the school life expectancy of a child in school, we also ask ourselves, what is this child going to get out of school if actually even the teachers cannot relate with them at a personal level to pass on to them these important skills? Then something else I would want to clearly mention on the education system of Uganda. I think the education system of our country is more on looking at qualitative increase rather than looking at the quality that is being produced out there, okay? We always hear of statistics, such number of girls increase, such number of boys increase, but the quality, we are looking at the quality. One of the challenges very many people are facing outside there, very many young people are not unemployed, is because they say that the quality that is being passed out is not sufficient to meet the market product. So where is the missing link? That means the missing link is in the education system. That means there is something wrong with the curriculum that needs to be changed so that a better process of acquiring knowledge or skills and respect of values can actually be passed to these young people. So the more government keeps on coming and saying, yes, we are going to build schools, schools are in place, which actually, we actually see that rural areas are clearly suffering on that point. So one of the things that I would actually say is government or the education system of Uganda looks at quantitative increase rather than looking at the qualitative product that would be put out on the market or out to the public. And then another thing is the inadequate teaching space or material. Look at children in private schools. I am not saying that the private sector is a bad place, but I'm just saying that the government itself has to be there to provide something more to offer. Because what the private institutions win the government, part of it is actually they provide the materials, but at a cost. Government is providing a free service. Probably we would say that because the teachers, are paid. I'm not saying free, but like it's open. But the quality coming out has a question on it. And some of the things I noted down when I was listening to this debate was the inadequate teaching space and materials that actually some of these youth or students cannot access when they're in some of these institutions. We have seen places where floods have washed away schools and all their reading materials have gone. But how does government react in such circumstances compared to the private institutions that provide education services? Then the other element is, do we really lack teachers in this country to provide the education that we need? Or there is just some kind of rocket science behind the back that we clearly do not understand? Because you realize that some teachers are not there in these schools. So the question is, where do they go to? They basically have to look for somewhere else that can provide them with something sufficient. So that is also another critique that we would clearly put on the government. Then another point is the inadequate disbursement of government funds. There is too much corruption in this state. There is too much corruption in Uganda in every sector.
Titus, as you conclude.
Yes. Yes. So as I was concluding on this point, I was looking at the corruption rates and the poor funding of some of these schools, probably in terms of providing materials for these students or the youth that can actually have a learning or a proper acquisition of knowledge. So that is another point that needs to be checked on, because if they say that actually teachers are being provided with some of these things, then where is the missing link that they actually even complain later on or do not provide the desired service as they have to do when they are getting some of these jobs? So basically, we would say there is also poor funding for the education sector programs, majorly that can actually model the young student or young pupil to be a better person in terms of acquiring knowledge for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Titus, for that very elaborate insight into the gaps in Uganda's education system. We shall get back to you surely to ask more questions on your submissions. So, Judith, this is the time you have to critique Uganda's education system. What do you think in your education system?
All right, thank you very much. I have had the benefit of reading some materials, to include that very book I mentioned before by Professor Sekawa, where a lot of challenges were highlighted, but they seem to be of the old fashion, being the African setting. But I think okay, I was getting feedback. One of the challenges.
Okay, Judith, we can't hear you well. You can take off your video and just use the audio.
How about now?
Yes, we can now hear you.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, I was saying one of the challenges, or call it critic, that I find in the education sector, one of the major reasons is the people we entrust to teach are those people who get lower grades and are failures, and they don't get to go to higher institutes of learning. For example, people who fail O-level, most of them just rush to, when they can't go higher, they just go to the education and they teach primary level students. And you find them teaching English, math, and yet they were failures in the first place. Like our teachers, the people we entrust to teach our kids are not the best products. You wonder what they be teaching, because if you failed even O-level, then you go to teach the same O-level that you go to teach students the same chemistry that you failed. I find that a challenge, and I think the main maybe a remedy should be empowering teachers to maybe to empower them and learn more to teach the kids in school. And another challenge I find is the school environment does not provide for weak learners a chance to exploit other avenues that are not academic. We have to agree that we can't all be educationalists or be in that sector or be, the formal way of learning. There are people who are good in other aspects. There are people who are good, who are skilled, or who might pick interest in other co-curricular activities. And yet the school, the whole setting emphasizes on academic excellence, which I find is a problem. If you would maybe teach students other skills of life, other than the real academic learning and reading and writing and all, that might help, that the other activities can help. For example, teach them, I think before they used to teach these hands-on skills, knitting, weaving and all. I don't know why they no longer do them. They're now reserved to tertiary institutions. But in schools, if they could maybe arrange that again, it can help other people to exploit other avenues of academic excellency. Another problem or critique, I find it in the recent past, schools do not exploit the extracurricular activities because they seem to be time wastage to some schools, because schools have turned out to be so exploitative in fees, and they just focus on making money. So while making money, one of the aspects of them is to make sure the students pass, whether they cheat exams, whether they emphasize students to do the learning instead of also doing the co-curricular activities. Like, long time we used to do, maybe you find a lot of people doing clubs in schools. They do sports. I'm sure they also do it, but recently they don't have a lot of vibe. They don't do it a lot like before. We used to have schools that gave us that displayed kids with a lot of they used to have schools that compete in a lot, like debating clubs, like patriotic clubs, like a lot of clubs that produce. We used to have speech days in school. Of late, we have parents, I think they call it Parents' Day or something, where they just come and mime songs and dance a little. And yet previously, they used to have a debate. Those speech days used to empower kids with the confidence to do the speech, to do like speaking in the public speaking, than the lately kind of setting. We used to have people who do sports. We find we are producing national, competitors going in the nationwide to compete, but lately it's been a reserve of only people who are interested in not in the education sector. So I find that a problem which might need to be also attended to. And then we have a problem of the teaching profession not being paid enough. Our teachers are not paid enough, and this is a problem. Whereby the teachers do not also concentrate on the teaching because they're not motivated in our place. They're not motivated to go to teach because of the little pay they get. So they find themselves divided. They divide attention to other, maybe part-time jobs that might get them to earn a living. So I think it is also a problem. We've had a lot of teachers striking. They need to hike their pay. Recently, even medicine and all. But the whole point is that teachers maybe need to be motivated enough by being paid well, because government has the money. So maybe it might need to pay well our teachers so they can be motivated to do the right way of teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for your discussion. I was able to listen in. Now we are going to have Joanitah. So Joanitah is going to give us as well her take. But before that, let us introduce Jonnathan, who has just joined us. Nareeba, Jonnathan, you're welcome to this platform. Kindly put your video and your audio on and introduce yourself. Okay, we are hoping that you'll be able to join us during the course of the discussion. So let us hear from Joanitah. So Joanitah, what do you think are some of the gaps in Uganda's education system besides the ones that have been discussed by Titus and Judith?
Yeah, actually, most of the gaps that are in the education system of Uganda all right around what Judith and Titus are from discussing. I want to bring a specific discussion on the government's poor planning. Because when you look at most of the challenges that have been looked at, you see that everything comes for the way these schools are planned for. Let's look at the way schools are funded. Let's start with funding. You find most of the school we have now. When you take an example of the private schools are better off than the government schools, and you find that each parent is hustling hard to make sure that his or her child goes to a private school, because it is even in our mental that we know we believe that our private schools are better than government schools, and this is sad because we would expect our government to be providing us with something better, because in these schools, government schools, we expect something better. We expect government schools to be better, but this is something which is not happening. You infrastructure, they're the ones where students don't get enough, have unqualified teachers, which is really unfair. Its citizens, then it is supposed to give them something that is of quality and not just quantity, like Titus was saying. And Titus looked at something called quantitative versus qualitative, and he was really right. You see that in the education system of Uganda, all we are looking at is quantity. How many students have graduated this year? How many students have finished A-level? How many students have finished O-level? But we don't look at how have they qualified? How have they done their exams? What was the procedure taken? And under this, you find a problem of malpractice. And at the end of that person, what procedure should be taken? So you find government how they plan for all this process. So the whole then I wanted to give another the problems that the teachers are facing, having little. You find that a student is meeting a teacher towards midterm exams in secondaries or at university, yet these people have paid, the students paid tuition fully, everything is done fully, but teachers are always absent. What does this mean? There is something that is lacking in the qualifications of these teachers. It shouldn't be about training teachers calculations or to teach them the equations of and what is important when relating, when it comes to qualification of the teachers. And I appreciate some information that has been running around over these days. They want to bring up a system where teachers have to have a diploma, I think, yes. And recently I've heard of the news of a degree, and maybe through that long process, there will be a chance of them getting better ideas on how to run their system. So yeah, that is one of the problems. I planning, it is with UNEB. When you look at how UNEB, you notice that results are out. When somebody has failed, this is the end of. What if this person failed these exams because he had issues at home? He didn't have the scholastic materials that were necessary, or there was a problem government is providing. If it is willing to give right, like a saying, which like this saying of if you're to do, I think most of the loopholes in education come in line of
Joanitah,
just
you
students
can
getting
remove your video because we cannot hear you properly. You're breaking. You can remove your video as you work on your source of internet.
Hello, am I clear now?
Yes, you can continue.
Oh, thank you. So I was looking how we are just considering how many people have that have graduated, and I noticed that it is in it population growth. If we say that 48% of Ugandans are youths, or the children of, you see that all these are students who are halfway of these are students are also in universities maybe, and to what is happening with quality and quantitative, that we will that someone has gone through school and failing to notice that if somebody has not as a person of that specific profession, then we'll under this system. Yes. I don't know if it was looked at when I didn't have network. It was it of practical and theory. When you look at this system of Uganda, we've overdwelled ourselves in theory teaching. Of the Caribbean, is it the Canadian? If you don't know the map of East Africa, if you can't draw it the way the teacher wants, then you're not going to qualify to do your exams of O level or A level. But should this be the case, is this person going to dwell his whole life on geography? Some people will be in need of only sciences. So you find that we
Joanitah,
are
kindly conclude. Joanitah, are you still there?
I'm there. Are you getting me?
Yes, I can now get you. So you can focus on that point and we will get back to you.
So as our challenge will be with the way that if something is
okay, we can no longer hear Joanitah at all. Okay, no problem. So thank you for your submissions on the general question, which was directed to you on the gaps in Uganda's education system. Now, I would like us to transition into the stage on the specific questions, and I would like to start with Titus. So, Titus, earlier you talked about the teenage pregnancies during COVID-19 pandemic when government closed schools. We have seen this closure of schools has affected the students and pupils in different ways. We have this category from nursery to primary 3 who have never gone back to school since the closure of the school. So my question to you is, do you think closing schools was the best alternative?
Thanks so much for that question. And I want to say that when the pandemic came, it wasn't foreseen or anticipated. It just came abruptly. And I have to say that it came at a time when Uganda wasn't prepared properly in terms of funding and managing the situation. However, that at that point, we can also say that the country did not take the most stable solutions when it came to closing the education system. First of all, I want to say before I comment about the effects that the topic can be had.
Titus, your network is as well unstable now. Network.
Can you hear me?
No, just remove the video. Audio.
Video. Okay. Youthfulness is a stage of life that is thorough. And it's a point in life where a person is transitioning into another phase of life in terms of physique, mentality, and also how the person relates back to the society. But what is important is also the environment that is created. Now, that is where the main problem is when it came to the pandemic. The environment that was created was not conducive for the learners per se. And most children that were affected, we are seeing that there are those who were in senior 2, senior 3, senior 4, senior 5, and probably some who were in the lower classes of probably P7 or P6. And as the Alaron stated, that to reach the apex, you have to start from the bottom. I studied in a school in Eastern Uganda, and one of the things when you entered the school was clearly understanding or having at least a chance to read the book about PSA education. And some of this information, not to indulge in sexual related issues and also relationships to mention. So at that point, I asked myself that what was the relevancy if actually it was being done in schools, or if it was properly being done, where was the problem? And then I go back to my earlier submission. I gave a comparison of the rural and the urban areas, because most of these young girls who got pregnant during the lockdown, it's not so much heard of in the urban areas, but more so in the rural areas, where we are getting claims an uncle jumped on a nephew, a neighbor slept with the daughter's child, you know, because he sees the child is growing and she's all big. So I think the environment that was created when it comes to the mentality of the student or the pupils when they went back home, I think that wasn't the correct environment that would have been created. Yes, the pandemic came abruptly, but the government took long to find a solution. Now, you're taking long to find a solution with youth who are active in their active stages or an active age. Look at a child in senior 2 undergoing adolescence, and then you're locking down such a child for close to a year. What results do you expect? If earlier on Judith mentioned that actually some of these things that are taught in class are not taken as serious by some of the students because of the environment of the teachers, or probably how the teachers are actually putting out this education. Now, that makes me to make a comment that people without education are like weapons without bullets. However, they still remain weapons anyway. So some of these teenage pregnancy cases that we had of was because of the decisions that actually government took, in my argument, was too long or long overdue before they found a solution for some of these young girls, particularly those in rural areas, because this is where some of them actually do not value education. Because when you look at education, education is a medium that actually encompasses into development. It's not just about studying and getting a good job and earning a lot of money and the rest, but it also looks at the personal development. What skills are you acquiring? What values are you growing with as a young person? So education is actually very, very, very instrumental in the realization of one's self. So looking at the pandemic and the decision of government taking to close down schools, I would say at the beginning it was a good initiative. but government took so long keeping the children at home or in lockdown and not doing anything. Because the solution that came out in lockdown, I think after about probably 5 months, was putting out radios. Now, if a person cannot concentrate even in class, in a physical class, and not understand anything, how is the child going to understand when he or she is at home, when actually there is no that pushing hand called the teacher? Because we realize some parents actually have also failed on their duties as parents at home. But also, why would you blame them when they're under a pandemic and they also have to look for something to put on the table for the child? So there was, I think, a poor decision-making process when it came to the education sector, because we realized that mostly the children in the rural areas were left out. And that is the truth. And that is where we are seeing many of them are pregnant and they are contemplating actually either to continue or drop out of school. And of course, we know many have actually dropped out of school. So at that point, you clearly even see that even when results were released, the performance wasn't that appealing, but because of some of these helping hand that the student missed out. Now, to bring it at a point of secondary level, a lot has to be given to a pupil or to a student while at that stage. One, they're in their active stages that they feel the body is communicating something different, but that body can be only controlled if actually you're impacting with them serious knowledge that can actually be beneficial to their skill development and value development. Now, that is what wasn't put into consideration when actually government was locking down the schools. They should have put up certain mechanisms that, yes, maybe probably they would have been, they would have created a channel. To me personally, I feel that a channel would have been created that teachers would have remained in contact with their students if they were going to effect a lockdown. Because as I said earlier on, the world is developing. You cannot rely on one radio for a full municipality or a whole village. The only way to solve such a problem is you creating a good student and teacher relation. And that is how the child is going to benefit from the education system. And this is going to create natural strength, natural fitness, and factual esteem or factual being. Because what should be importantly stated is that education is a factor of change in one's life. Education is a factor of change in one's life. Now, these children or students have been impregnated. So what next for their education life? We do not know, because actually they cannot say that, some of them are ashamed, they're traumatized, and they cannot make it back to school. Some of them actually were impregnated by their teachers, probably. So how is such a child going to create back the feeling of even going back to school? So as government even thinks of opening up schools, they should put something in the curriculum which keeps on changing from time to time, that it should be one that is of real benefit to the child. Okay, so, and as I conclude, I have to say that education should be equipped with a favorable environment under suitable conditions for this child to attain skills, knowledge, and values. Because if this child cannot attain these skills and values while in school, then how is this child going to attain them from home or from the society if actually the government has not done its part through the teachers in schools? That as the government closed down the schools, it did not look at the environment it was sending these pupils into. Clearly, I can testify that some of the people I admire to be with were my friends in senior two, and some of them succumbed to some of these things. That time there was no pandemic, but this relation or connection between the student and the teacher is not there. And if it is there, it is actually at a limited level. So basically, I have to say that really the pandemic came and the government brought the lockdown. The lockdown was too long that actually some of these girls ended up forgetting some of the things they studied in school. So that is what I have to say about the effects of COVID-19 and lockdown and the high levels of teenage pregnancy, which actually resulted as a result of these children not realizing some of the benefits they had gotten from school. So with my conclusion, I really have to say that with proper education impacted to these children in school, or students in school, clearly you're going to have a productive student or a productive child. That was the best thing that was to be done. And with that missing link, and that is why we saw the
Titus,
high
as you
of teenage
conclude,
yes. Yes, as I conclude, I was saying that with a proper education impacted on the students, we shall have a better productive student. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Titus. Let's bring Judith into the. So Judith, earlier on you talked about the informal education system that we had back in the 80s that no longer exists. So I would like you to compare Uganda's education system and the current one to that former one that we used to have in the 80s. What is lacking in the current education system that was there in the informal education system?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I attempted to answer that question in my earlier submissions, but I can maybe draw more light. What is lacking right now in the formal education sector is we do not have the practical kind of skills to the young people. Previously, in the I like how you call it the ATS, but yeah, that African setting, that kind of education, which to people wasn't education, but maybe to other people it was. They used to take these people to the practical ways. They used to take them to the garden. If someone is interested in carpentry, they take them to the workshops and teach them the practical way. This is how you dig. This is how you mold pots. This is how you weave baskets. I think it was also related to gender and their responsibilities, home management skills. If you're a boy, you're taught how to defend your family and yourself, how to use peers and all those and those things. So, which are really lacking in the recent formal education, because our formal education is just to read and write and go to the our formal education concentrates on passing examinations and having learners to be promoted to the next class as long as you cram your things very well. If tomorrow is the paper, science paper, cram your things, go to class, go to exam, write them down, and that will be the end of it. What skill did you learn? What did you even learn that will help you earn a living in the next life? Yet in the informal African setting, if you learn how to weave a basket, tomorrow you will maybe do more and sell them and get a living. If you've learned carpentry, if you learn digging, you know, we can't run away from the fact that agriculture is a backbone of this country. So if you learn the agriculture,
please remove your video again.
Okay. Am I clear now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So as I'll trying to relate the informal and formal education of the presently the formal education. people used to learn a lot of skills and then put them into practice, compared to the now education. You see, while the colonialists were introducing this formal education, I think they tried to divide it into, was it called ruralization and urbanization? Ruralization was the education made to match with the environment. If this environment is good with they have fertile soils, then do their digging. That was ruralization. Then there was urbanization, which urbanization was the education to produce more of I think it's a more what we took up right now, that produce job seekers, the white collar jobs. You go to school, cram your things, cram your notes, go to paper and put them down. And tomorrow when you're done, when you have graduated, you start carrying posts of what next, because you cannot put whatever you studied theoretically into practice. You have to be a clerk to someone, you have to manage someone's business as a, so myself, I think the skills that were impacted to young people then were more relevant than the recent formal education, which just goes to, I think even our parents have been, my friend, my colleague Joanne mentioned about private and public schools right now, saying that private schools, they do more. The parents trust them because they put maybe the competition, the competition level, because they teach kids very well. But I think it is more of a business competition. The private schools, they want to do they put the rates high, but you pay the rates and then they do malpractice, and then there's a lot in the education system that does not at the end of the day help our students to be good citizens, because education is meant to turn learners into productive citizens. So what productive citizens are you actually putting out there after graduation? There's no other thing you can do for yourself. The recent, the recent trend is after graduating 3 years, 4 years, go back to square zero and start a business. Yet you would have started, if you're interested in business, these programs should have been put. Maybe if you're interested, you go to those particular things you want to study and make a living. I think our government has tried to, in the new I think 2020 curriculum, the new curriculum, the senior ones recently, the new curriculum where they tried to include the co-curricular activities, to include the weaving. I have a sister who's in senior one. They were telling me they are trying to teach them how to sew, how to weave. So they're trying to, reinstate that informal, I can't call it informal. Okay, yeah, that informal education right now. I don't know if I attempted to answer your question.
Yes, Judith, you have ably answered the question. Thank you so much. I would like to move to Joanitah. So Joanitah, earlier on in Judith's submission, she mentioned that there are so many job seekers instead of job creators, that our education system teaches us how to seek instead of how to create. So do you agree with her? Do you think there is a connection between the job seeking and Uganda's education system?
I don't know if it's on. I didn't get your question well.
Okay. Earlier on, Judith talked about Uganda's education system teaching people how to seek for jobs instead of creating job creators. So my question to you is, do you agree with Judith? Do you think there is a connection between Uganda's education system and creating so many job seekers out there?
I actually agree and at the same time disagree. So it's on the balance of probabilities. With Uganda's education system, I don't know if it sounded funny when I defined it as complicated, but it is really complicated because you wouldn't say it is creating, it is bringing out people for job creation, or say it is creating people for job seekers. Because when you look at the curriculum and everything that is taught, I find everything important, and I'm sure each and every one of you agree with me. However much we see that we were trying to relate in what was done in the African traditional society and to the current system of education, everything that is being taught is important. That if someone is going to school and wants to become a lawyer, it is important. We have criminals in this country. If someone wants to be a doctor, same thing. A teacher, we need teachers. That's why even we are saying that some of the gaps that are some of the things lacking in the education system is unqualified teachers. That it is important, we need teachers, but maybe we should do it better. So if I'm to look at the side of it creating more job seekers than job creators, I would look at it being so much of theory. We see that the education system of Uganda is too much of theory. Like I said in my earlier submission, that someone is going to spend 6 years in high school studying something maybe which would have been summarized. That if, like I've said, that everything is important, but how much is being studied in which kind of time? I think it is better when something is being done in the curriculums, something on the curriculum, that there are things that are lacking in the way the education sector is planning for the students and the peoples of this country. If we look at the problem of creating more job seekers than job creators, then we are looking at the theory part of it, that you go to school and spend 5 years studying things that you don't plan to do. That if somebody was to, let me go back to my example of secondary, where one is in O level for 4 years, where maybe it could have been like maybe 1 year, and give this person a chance to choose. Because I remember in primary we used to have songs, because we would relate to people who have we would have our role models who have done nice things and we want to be like them. But by Form 2, where somebody is choosing to cut off some subjects and continue with other hard subjects, yet these ones that she or he is cutting off, maybe this is the option, this is where her life belongs. You see, Judith talked about the importance of the education that we used to have back then in our African traditional way of doing things. That if you're taught how to do a math, you will know that, I'm completely well with doing the math, and if I make more, I will sell them and I'll get buyers. But in actual sense now, you've studied for your, let me say, from senior 1 to senior 2, and some practical classes you have to cut them off because you have to do lesser subjects from your Form 3 to Form 4. Yet in actual sense, you're cutting off this art subject and maybe Uganda, and you're continuing with chemistry, yet your head is just full of art, and you're not taking this chemistry anywhere. You're not taking this biology anywhere. So I find that we would be having maybe like senior 1 to Form 4, where Form 3 and Form 4 are the classes of A level, where you've already confirmed I'm going to do sciences and arts. We spend a lot of time studying what is very unnecessary. That's where the theory thing comes in. Then when I'm to say that it actually creates job, the education system gives a chance to job creators. Yes, it does. It actually does give a chance to job creators, because leave alone the corruption that we have in this country, leave alone the poor funding that we have in this country, leave alone the absenteeism of teachers in schools, leave alone the problems of some students who are not well brought up. If everything was in line the way it is supposed to be, you will notice that at the end of the day, if a student is well conversant with what he's studying, he will go ahead to do what is supposed to be done. If it isn't, creating more technical schools won't make people job creators. Constructing more schools where they teach those carpentry schools, maybe advising people to be more of engineers, teaching people how to make maths, going back to our tradition won't save us. It is not the problem, but those loopholes we've been talking about, I find them as the things that we are supposed to look at and clean and make ourselves better. Because when we say that Uganda's education system is only creating job seekers than creators, it is actually halfway right. It is not fully right, because everything, my main point being that everything that we are studying is very important, because each and every subject we study, you notice that someone has got to do something. Maybe what we have to teach people is what is lacking is on how to program and plan for these people to know that if you want to do sciences, which part of sciences do you want to do as early as possible, so that we have.
As you conclude, Joanitah.
Yes, please. Yeah. So, like I was saying, that if you're, the only thing that is lacking is the way we are planning. Something is in this. It is in the system itself. The corruption, how these schools are funded. That if something is done here, we can get people. We can get all the students finish universities when they are all job creators and not job seekers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. We have moved to the stage in our discussion where we shall provide solutions to the different gaps that we provided. I'll start with Titus. Titus, please restrict yourself to 3 minutes. What do you think should be done to improve Uganda's education system?
Well, I think one of the main things that has been done is creating a better education environment, in terms of providing a positive relationship between the students and
Titus, we can't. Titus, we cannot hear you at all. We cannot hear you at all. I don't know if it's my network, but I cannot hear Titus at all.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now
Hello.
hear you.
Okay, so I was saying, I was saying that we need to have a better environment so that the education that the children or the students are receiving can be productive Of course, that has to start with a relation, a good relation between the teacher and the student. And then we have a relationship between the student and the students. Meaning the students also have a relation. And then there has to be a relationship between the teachers and the government that is responsible, or the responsible ministry. Because in most cases we have seen teachers complaining, that means there is something missing between the government and the teachers. So once that relationship is good, then that means even the end result, the students will have a good environment that shall be productive. Number two, we need to have social ethics respected. I think we wouldn't be talking about teenage pregnancy where we find that a teacher is actually responsible for a senior two being pregnant. Really, that clearly shows that there is no respect of social ethics in their profession as teachers they themselves. Of course, their main duty is to impact knowledge into the students. So let them stick to that, and that can only be achieved if there is a good relationship between the teacher and the student, and the student between and then there's relationship between the students they themselves, because we realize when we go to school we go to learn, and the learning process also involves the people we find at school or the people we go with to school. And we also need to look at the values. What values are being impacted into the students or the pupils? Because the values or the knowledge being impacted to them is like a relationship we have, the relationship between the soul and the body. So there has to be serious values. There should be need that actually the child is aware that I've gone to school to get the knowledge, and I have to make sure that I acquire the knowledge. Since we say we start from the apex, we start from, to reach the apex, you have to start from the bottom. So there has to be a good relationship. Then the other solution that needs to be seriously worked on, I will clearly buy it from the ideas that Joanitah has been saying or airing out in her submission. We need to change. I think the curriculum is a little bit more of boring, because what is the reason of a person doing PCB at high school or PCM and ending up studying law? It doesn't make any sense. That means the child did not actually desire to become to become a doctor or that line of profession, because we have seen some of our friends who studied some of these big courses and they end up doing law or some other courses or procurement. Then you ask yourself, what was the relevance of him taking up such a combination that actually gave him bad nights reading and struggling, yet at the end of the day he was interested in something else? So if that kind of mindset is put into the students, then surely we shall have good products out in the societies. Then I also have to say that there has to be proper or sufficient remunerations given to these teachers. Let them be given good allowances, good accommodation, so that they can actually go to class while knowing I am going to speak or I'm going to teach a child to become a better person tomorrow. I'm going to teach someone who is going to be born in society. So if such skills are impacted into the students at such a level, then definitely we shall have good results. Then at the end of the day, we shall have good citizens, of course, who can actually appreciate the education system. Then also another solution I have to say is that let's forget the theoretical part of it and be more of elective. Let the curriculum provide elective programs rather than
Titus, as you conclude.
Yes, this is my last point as I conclude. The curriculum should be more of elective, okay? Like, let the child select what he wants, as the whites do, because, these guys can make you admire them. At the age of 21, someone is already graduating as a profession. He's going for his master's. While in Uganda or Africa, a person who's 25 is still struggling in senior 6, and you ask yourself, where is the problem? That means there is a gap down there. We need a good foundation to really have good products. So I think an elective program or an elective curriculum will clearly give a child a sense of direction to be productive. And of course, at the end of the day, the child will be a weapon with bullets that are productive for his country. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Titus. Let me move to Judith. So Judith, what do you think should be done to Uganda's education system so that we can make it better?
Thank you very much, moderator, for today. I would like to first supplement on Joan's submissions. From the start of the discussion, Joan has been mentioning that we have a poor government planning system. And I would like to think that actually the problem is not the planning. Maybe if you can call it the implementation of the plans, because the plans are already there. We have in the education sector alone, we've had a lot of initiatives to include UPE, USE. The new curriculum has been brought up to impact skills. We have scholarships in universities. We have loan schemes. We have technical and vocational training centers. I think the problem is not a planning, because all these initiatives are really good. Maybe if she can say that the implementation of these things is a problem, but the planning is actually on point. Okay, now to answer your question. I would like to really state that being with the outbreak of COVID, the education sector, like many other sectors, was profoundly affected. My problem, though, that is the fact that while many people are doing homeschooling, using the internet, they're doing Zoom kind of schools, like we are doing right now in meetings. We had an increment of 12% tax on the internet. I wonder what the government, I understand they're trying to generate revenue, but again, such initiative in a very critical time where the whole economy is down, the education system is down, people have been down, have been in their homes for 2 years. The only remedy is the homeschooling via social media. They're using internet, and then you impose a 12% tax was really uncalled for. And I think it is something, if you're talking about the solutions, I think it's something that needs to be reviewed. And maybe they reduce on the tax, because that's a lot of tax. You put your good number of MBs and in minutes it's done. So I think the government needs to review such kind of tax to create a good environment for students to learn, because there are a lot of things one can learn online apart from going to schools. And we've had e-learning systems upcoming because of this whole outbreak of COVID-19. We have had people doing online courses. So I think it is the government needs to lower or reduce the tax rates on such initiatives that promote education in the learning system. Another solution that I might think of is our parents also. They should not leave the whole education to the schools. We've had instances where parents were crying out loud that they should open schools because they are tired of their own children at home. I think the parents need to do some good job with while bringing up these kids, the children, buy for them self-study books, help them. There are very many skills that are not actually not taught in the universities or even in schools. Like, for example, the self-esteem, confidence, how to build your confidence, how to be how to be yourself, learn what you really want. These things are not taught in school. When you go to school, it's just chemistry. What is chemistry? Right?
Judith, as you conclude.
Oh, all right. So I was saying our parents need to do also a good job while bringing up these kids. Do self-study books. Measures should be taken to mitigate all these problems. And I think the other solution to produce I'll go back to Joanitah's things of job creation and job seekers. To produce job creators and critical thinkers and innovators and entrepreneurs, different methods should be exploited. We shouldn't just be in the
I can't hear Judith anymore. Okay, then let's move to Joanitah. To Joanitah to give us her solution. So what do you think should be done to improve Uganda's education system?
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. So with the solutions to improve on the education system of Uganda, I would like to bring us to the problem of corruption, which I noticed it's only me who looked at it. And it runs all around the education system of Uganda. When you look at the administrators, the teachers, nothing is in line without corruption in the education. It's not only in the education system, but right now that we are looking at the education system, it is something that should be addressed. Strict laws should be put. If somebody is starting from malpractice, this, by the time students do malpractice, it is because they have been addressed to the exam to copy or to the exam that they are going to do. And what does this open us to? It is the administrators. It may be the people that work in UNEP that wanted some little money from these schools and ended up producing the exam to certain schools. And this brings us back what? To corruption. So if strict punishments could be put for such people, I believe it is one of the ways we would. It is hard to fight corruption in Uganda, but I believe it is one of the ways we would reduce on the corruption that is in the education system. Then with the unqualified teachers, it is not so much of a problem, but there is something lacking with the way teachers relate with students and the way they teach. It is always important when these teachers are being trained. Certain things should be involved, of which I don't think such things are involved. Things like how to treat students. There are students who drop out of schools because they can't deal with teachers. Why? That a certain teacher will behave a certain way that will make a student change school. And at the end of the day, because this teacher maybe helps school in a certain manner, that this teacher may not be punished. So it is advisable that these teachers are trained enough on how to treat students and on how to to avoid these cases of absenteeism, of asking parents for money, for certain documents which are sometimes provided by schools. And another issue, it was brought up by Judith, it is to do with parents. Titus looked at the problem of teenage pregnancies, and this is a problem that has
Joanitah,
been
as you conclude, we have run out of time.
I want to finish with this important point of teenage pregnancies. We see that most people are complaining of teenage pregnancies during this COVID-19 era, and they are bringing all this problem to COVID-19. But if we look at this whole situation, I as a person, I find it important that a parent should be one to protect his or her child better than even schools do. So if we are complaining that girls are unsafe with their parents at home, then that they should go back to school so that they run away from pregnancies. That shows that there is something lacking in the way certain parents take care of their children. So it is sometimes important that parents also do more care, like take more care of their children, so that they work hand in hand with schools to clean the education system. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much to all our panelists. I would like to get your closing remarks. Let me start from Titus. Titus, a brief closing remarks.
Thank you so much.
We can't hear you, Titus.
Okay, yes, now you can.
Yes.
Yes. So my closing remark would be that education is needed. It's very important and useful for a child or for a young person. We realize with the current statistics, the young are very many, and they need to be impacted with some of these skills that will be of use for personal development, speak of social, economic, and even the political aspect of life. So education is very, very, very important when you speak in terms of developing one's mindset as part of some of things that are happening in society. Speak of so many youths participating in climate change and education. So as I conclude, I want to say that education is important, but proper education leads to productive students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Titus. Let me move to Judith. Your closing.
Thank you very much, the moderator, though you also the network is unstable. I hope I am.
Yes, Judith, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My closing remark, I would like to state that the education is like our labor word for solving the skills problem in society. And I think to produce more of job creators, critical thinkers, entrepreneurs, and inventors, different methods and methodologies need to be exploited other than what we've been going through. And we need to tell people that the sole purpose of education for the learners is not to have higher marks or being promoted to the next class and all, but to mold them into productive citizens who acquire skills to help themselves and the entire nation at large and live in harmony. I'd like to thank my fellow panelists and our moderator. Thank you very much. I was pleased to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith, and we are happy to have you on this platform. Last but not least, let's have Joanitah give us a closing remark.
Thank you, our dear moderator. So, like we've been discussing, education education is very important, like everyone has said. And if we find it important, then it means we have to invest in it, because it is important for everyone to attain knowledge. There is nothing sad like not being knowledgeable. So if we have to solve the problems in our education system, then it is important we face the challenges that we are having. And one of the ways this will be done is if the administrators we have learn how to associate with these people who are down, who the real people who are facing the problems. Because you find a child who is from a local people who are from the rural areas, they have never gotten an opportunity to face the administrators. And these are some of the sad stories that come to bring about our challenges in the education system. Thank you, fellow panelists, and thank you, our moderator.
Thank you as well. I would like to extend my gratitude to the panelists. Today, we had 3 panelists from Kampala International University who ably discussed for us our topic for today, which has been the foundation of every state is the education of its youth. What is the state of Uganda's education? I would like to appreciate our panelists. I would like to appreciate Center for Constitutional Governance for bringing for us this debate, as well as Civic Space TV. And thank you so much, our viewers, for watching. And till next time, bye.